Welcome to JOGG Deep Dive, where we explore the stories behind the headlines.
So sorry about the aggressive maneuver. Not a fun day at work.
Yeah.
Imagine hearing that from your pilot right after something clearly very wrong just happened.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying. And that's exactly what passengers heard on SkyWest-operated Delta Connection Flight 3788. This was back on July 18th.
Right, near Minot, North Dakota.
Yeah.
This plane, just a regular commuter jet heading, I think, from Minneapolis.
That's right, Minneapolis to Minot. And it almost collided head-on, basically, with a U.S. Air Force B-52 bomber.
A huge bomber. I mean, a commercial flight and a massive military aircraft, suddenly way too close for comfort.
And that's really why we're digging into this today, isn't it? We want to go beyond just the, wow, that was close aspect.
Exactly. We're doing our deep dive here to understand why, what leads up to a moment like that. The decisions made under, I imagine, incredible pressure.
The split-second actions that thankfully prevented a disaster, but also, maybe more importantly, the systemic stuff. The issues that could even allow these two types of aircraft onto a collision path.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts. The immediate trigger, as I understand it, was kind of twofold.
Yeah, basically, first, the B-52 unexpectedly turned into the approach path for the Minot airport.
Which is obviously not ideal.
Not ideal at all. And second, critically, there was apparently no radar warning given from the Air Force Base about this military traffic. None at all.
So the Delta pilot was flying blind, essentially, into the situation, just reacting in the moment. It sounds like something out of a movie.
It really does.
Yeah.
But for the people on that plane, incredibly real. So this Delta regional jet, it's making its standard approach into Minot. Routine flight.
Just another Tuesday or whatever day it was.
Exactly. And then suddenly, it's not routine anymore. The pilot has to execute this urgent go-around, abort the landing.
And that's the aggressive maneuver part.
That's the one, described as very aggressive, not just a gentle turn, a sharp, evasive action to get out of the B-52's way.
Wow. And we actually have a passenger's perspective, right? Monica Green.
Yes, and her account is fascinating. She said, it felt weirdly calm, hard turn, and then the apology.
Weirdly calm. That's striking. You'd expect panic, maybe. But that sudden jolt, that hard turn, and then the pilot's immediate, quite understated apology puts you right there.
It really does. And that kind of transparency from the pilot, even in that moment of crisis, is pretty remarkable. Shows a certain level of control, maybe?
Or just professionalism under fire.
Yeah.
But what sets this whole thing up, you mentioned the lack of warning. That seems basic.
It does, and that's where we see the immediate procedural failure. The tower, the civilian, air traffic control, they cleared the Delta flight for its approach. Standard procedure.
Okay.
But crucially, they failed to mention any military traffic nearby. Zero mention of a B-52 operating close to the airport's approach path.
So the tower knew, or should have known, or the Air Force didn't tell the tower.
Well, that's part of what the investigation needs to figure out.
Yeah.
But compounding the tower's omission was the lack of any radar warning directly to the crew from, presumably, the military side.
Right. So no heads up from ATC, no electronic warning. They were just relying on seeing it out the window.
It certainly seems that way, and that's where it gets really concerning, because it points to a potential breakdown in just standard operating procedures. The civilian crew was left completely unaware.
So connecting this to the bigger picture then, civil-military airspace coordination. How is this supposed to work? Why wasn't that crew told?
Well, there are supposed to be very clear protocols. Shared airspaces, especially around airports near military bases, are complex environments.
I bet.
Procedures exist for communication, for radar handoffs between military controllers and FAA civilian controllers. Think of it like passing a baton in a relay race.
Okay, the radar handoff is making sure someone is always watching the plane.
Precisely. Continuous monitoring as it moves between sectors or agencies. This incident strongly suggests that baton got dropped, or maybe it was never properly passed in the first place.
And this isn't just a theoretical problem, is it? You mentioned earlier.
No, unfortunately not. We've seen tragic outcomes from similar coordination failures. There was that awful military-civilian collision over Washington, D.C. back in January.
Oh, right. I remember hearing about that. How many?
67 people died on the civilian aircraft in that one. So putting this Minot near miss in that context, it really underlines the seriousness. It's not just a one-off fluke. It points to a recurring vulnerability.
Okay, wow. That definitely raises the stakes. So let's talk about the pilot again, that split-second decision. Execute the go-around, turn behind the bomber. That sounds incredibly difficult.
It is. Pilots train for this stuff, of course. Evasive maneuvers are part of the syllabus, but it's more than just the physical act of flying the plane.
Like the mental side.
Exactly. A cockpit resource management, CRM, that's a huge part of modern pilot training.
Yeah.
It's about how the crew works together, communication, making decisions under extreme stress, managing workload.
So it's teamwork under pressure.
Absolutely. And the fact that the pilot was able to make that quick call, execute the maneuver, and communicate calmly to the passengers, like Monica Green observed, that suggests the CRM training really worked.
Yeah, that clear, calm communication is key. It makes you think, what kind of message would you want to hear in that seat? Probably exactly that. Calm, factual.
Probably. Honesty, but without causing panic. It's a fine line.
So, beyond the human factor, let's circle back to the system itself. The technology, the procedures, we talked about the radar handoff. Is that the main weak point here?
It's definitely a major focus for the investigations. You've got SkyWest, the FAA, that's the Federal Aviation Administration, and the Air Force all looking into this incident very closely.
As they should be.
Right. And this event really throws a spotlight on maybe the need for more mandatory real-time sharing of military flight plans and operations, especially when they're happening near busy civilian airports.
You mean like an automatic feed or alert?
Something like that. Right now, it can feel like there isn't always a centralized, immediate flow of information between the military system and the civilian system. It's a potential systemic vulnerability.
Almost like two different worlds operating in the same space without always talking to each other effectively.
That's a good way to put it. Different cultures, different priorities sometimes, trying to share the same crowded sky. The technology and procedures need to bridge that gap reliably every single time.
So zooming out then, is this Minot incident just like a really stark example of a growing problem? Are we seeing more concerns about civilian flights mixing it up with military activity near bases?
I think there are growing concerns, yes. Air travel keeps increasing, right? Our skies are getting busier. Military operations aren't going away. They're essential. So the potential for these kinds of encounters, well, it logically could increase if we don't constantly improve coordination.
So Minot was a near miss, thankfully averted, but it serves as a real warning sign.
Precisely. It highlights this ongoing challenge. How do we make sure civil and military aviation can coexist safely? Are the current protocols truly robust enough? Are they consistently followed? This incident suggests maybe not always.
Okay. So wrapping this part up, safety was maintained here. And it seems like we owe a huge debt to the pilot's quick thinking and skill.
Absolutely. The human element, the pilot's action, was the last line of defense, and it worked this time.
But it leaves you, the listener, with some pretty big questions, doesn't it? Like, just how common are these near misses between civilian and military planes? Are we hearing about all of them?
That's a great question, and what's really being done systemically beyond investigating after the fact to prevent them? Should there be some kind of mandatory alert system in civilian cockpits? Like a specific warning, military traffic nearby?
Yes, something more direct. It makes you wonder. While that pilot saved the day in Minot, what does this whole deep dive really tell us about, maybe, the hidden cracks in how we manage our skies?
It suggests there are complexities and perhaps vulnerabilities that aren't always apparent until something like this happens. It's definitely something we're thinking about.
And we'll actually pick up on some of that next time. We're planning to look into some of the newer technologies coming online for collision avoidance in the cockpit, and also potential policy changes that might be needed for airspace management. So definitely continue the journey with us.